Welcome to the live build. My name is Jan de Vries, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at Mendix. And today we're going to do a live build where we'll be building a live package tracker. And Ryan will be able to tell you more and show you more. So welcome, Ryan.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here again.
And let's get to the agenda. So what we'll be doing, first of all, I'll be showing you what we're going to do during the live build. We'll be showing you what we're going to make today. And Ryan will actually give you a little app demo itself of the final app so you can see what we're going to be building in the end. Then we're going to get to the building itself. So we're going to go into Studio Pro. We're going to do the live build. And we're going to be building out a couple of features that we'll be talking about more in a minute. At the end, we'll do a little recap. And in between, we'll have some polls here and there just to gauge your interest and see how you guys are doing. And make sure you submit your questions, so we'll get to them at the Q&A. Now, what are we going to make today? As you all know, the holiday season's coming up. We've got Black Friday, we've got Thanksgiving. In the Netherlands, we've got Sinterklaas, of course. And then next month, of course, we have Christmas. So I think more than ever, we'll be ordering packages and gifts from the comfort of our couch and instead of going out. So the question is, how do you track all your different gifts and packages? And that's when we thought, hey, why don't we just build a one and all package tracker? So Ryan, can you tell us more about the app and give us a little demo?
Sure. So let's just start talking about the app first. So this app is built in 8.15.1. We're connecting to an API called 17Track. So 17Track is an aggregator of data. Basically, what that means is they take all this data from about over 500 courier companies worldwide, and then they provide all of that data back into a single API. So let's jump into a quick demo. Sorry, just unlock the phone.
So we actually wanted to show you an integration with each of the different parcel companies. But what we discovered is that you have to actually be a registered merchant and courier to be able to use the APIs. So unfortunately, Mendix is not a registered courier. So we actually had to use an aggregator ourselves. But the concept is virtually the same, which is integrating with an external API, with an external tool.
All right, so this is the app over here. This is running in the Make It Native app. So we just enter credentials. So we've got the biometric authentication set up again for some nice user experience. All right, so this is the home page. You can see there's a profile picture up top with a little welcome message. We have a text box for putting in a tracking number and a button to track those things. We also have in progress and completed orders. If we click an order, you can see there's some information there that we get back from the API. You can swipe up. You can select an alternative drop-off point. So we have some lists of drop-off points over here. This circle that's spinning is the Maps widget. It's not loading because I don't have an API key for it, but we are going to configure that in the demo. The problem is API keys cost a bit. Yeah, so nice little simple app. Why don't we jump in and get building?
Yeah. So while Ryan is preparing his Studio Pro, I'm curious about what you guys think. So how will you buy your holiday gifts this year? So here's a little poll that pops up on your screen. How will you buy your gifts this holiday season? Are you going out to shop? Oh yeah, baby. Are you going to hunt for digital discounts from the comfort of your couch? Are you going to do a bit of both? Maybe, order some online, maybe also go out for a couple of gifts. Or maybe you're just not getting any gifts this year. Could be. I mean, don't tell your relatives, don't tell your friends. Or maybe you're going to do something completely different. So If so, let us know in the chat what you're going to do. And I will be closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. All right, let's take a little look because I'm really curious. So here are the results. Most people will be hunting. Ooh, most people actually do a combination. So digital and going out. Yeah, share it with hunting from the comfort of your couch. So that's at least what I'll be doing. So thanks for sharing. Over to you, Ryan. Let's get started.
Oh, let me share my screen. Oh, wrong screen.
That's the actual script. Oh no, spoilers.
Yeah, it was only up for a second. All right, correct screen is shared. All right, so we are inside the webinar version or live build version of the project over here. We are in the native mobile domain model. And I'm going to start just by talking you guys through the domain model quickly so you can be sure to understand it. And then we're going to jump in and start building some pages. So the API itself is mapping to this non-persistible structure. Over here, you can see all these orange blocks. This is because we don't really want to store all of that in that form. It's a bit messy. It doesn't really make much sense. So what I do when I get this data, I convert it manually and I store it in these persistible blue objects over here. It's a bit more simplified and a bit more easier to read. We also have a couriers entity for a list of courier information, drop-off locations, and a tracking holder to hold that tracking number on the home page. So if anyone is a bit confused about this, I encourage you to download the project files, take a look for yourself. If there's any questions, you can shoot me a message on the Slack community workspace. All right.
Yeah, I'll be sharing that link as well, by the way. If you're not a part of the community Slack yet, I'll post a link in the chat and you can just join that. And there's thousands of other people on there. So yeah, join us.
So to start off, we're going to go into the pages, native, and then home_native. So this is the home page we saw earlier. My cheesy photo up top with a little welcome message. You can make this photo configurable if you want, just using some image entities and a image viewer if you would like. So here's our tracking holder, which is storing that tracking number for us. It's just in a data source nanoflow. To be clear, this is a native mobile app, so it's offline. We have to use native nanoflows because that is the standard. You can't access online capabilities, or you can, but you have to do it in this way. So we have some tab containers down here for in progress and completed. Let's start with that, why don't we? So we're going to go and add a list view over here. So the data we want to show are packages, but we have this outer account data view out here. So when we populate this, we're going to choose a data source from the database. And we're going to go through the account, which is the parent object. And we can look for package info over here, fire account. Now we have in progress and completed. So we're going to add some constraints to filter that data on the page. So we're going to add a constraint and we're going to constrain it on a status enumeration. Now, the status enumeration, I'll explain a bit more in a few moments, but basically I use this to set the status of the package and where it's at. So there's stuff like shipped, delayed, delivered, all of that. So we want equals to, or not equals to, sorry, because we don't want it to be delivered. So if I say not equals to delivered, it will then give us everything which is in progress, delayed, etc. You can see all of the statuses here. So we have order received, package shipped, delayed, delivered, and an empty one. Right, click OK there. We don't need to automatically fill. We have some pre-built components for that. Now, if you copy this and paste it over here in this separate block, This is pretty much as we want it, but we need to change that constraint. So we want now everything which is completed, and in our case, it is delivered. So instead of not equals, we're going to make it equals. And by doing this, we can have everything split out nicely into different tabs. So those are just empty lists right now. We want to put something inside of them. So if you go into the Project Explorer, there is a snippets folder. You can see we have in progress and completed packages. So drag those into their respective places. And if I go in here, I built this snippet using a building block. It is just the generic building blocks that come with native mobile. And what I did is I added the building block to the page and I modified it just slightly to what I wanted. So here we have some badges which are hidden again based off of that status. So if it's delayed, I show a delayed badge, which has the caption delayed and it's red. And if it's in progress but not here, then it's an orange badge and it says on its way. For completed, it's green and it just says completed. And we have a progress circle in there as well. So for in progress, it's 50%. For completed, it's 100%. So
Wait.
the page is
Yeah.
pretty built. I guess next up is the integration to track the package.
Yeah, I'm curious how you're going to build the actual tracking itself. So we have that search box and the button over there. Can we make that button search for our package?
Yeah, so this is where it's going to get a little complex. So we have this nanoflow, and in this nanoflow, we want to somehow call this integration, this API. Now, as I explained earlier, nanoflows are offline first, so we need to be a bit clever about how we call that integration. So we've got a few things to finish here. We have to block the page by using a progress bar, call the integration, sync that data back to the device somehow, and then retrieve that data from our device's database. Finally, we can put that info into a page, and then we have to remove the progress bar, which is just good UX. All right, so if we add an activity here, and we just search for progress, you will be able to see show progress and hide progress. We want to show it, and it's asking for a message. So here we can say searching for package. And for blocking, we can just use this dropdown and we want it to block true. If you say false, they'll still be able to click things on the page. Now, I don't like return value name, so we're going to give this a nice name, and we're going to call this progress in the traits world. Fantastic, that's done. So how do we call an API which requires a connection from an offline device in a nanoflow? And the answer is actually quite simple. If we add an activity here, we now have in Mendix 8, we have the ability to call a microflow from a nanoflow. So if you search for microflow call or either of those words, you'll find it. You can just click it. Now we can just select the microflow name. I have it here in this folder. So we want sub underscore track parcel. Now, how does this work? When we are passing data back and forth between a microflow from a nanoflow, we can't use things like non-persistible entities because it will basically, that information is stored in the device and it won't reach the server when we send it. So I find the best way to do parameters and that sort of thing is to use string variables or a certain data type instead of objects. So for the tracking number, we are just going to pass it the tracking holder's tracking number. One thing I like to do is on an input box, I like to use a trim statement. And this removes any white space that they might have accidentally entered or pasted. So if there's a space at the beginning or the end, it will get cut off. For the account email, we're just going to pass it account, and we have the email. Cool. So that's us calling the integration from the native mobile side. But this isn't actually finished. I'm going to go back to this in a moment, and I'll show you how to do that in its entirety. First, we're going to finish up this NanoFlow. So now we've got that data. We need to sync that back to the device. So to do that, we have to use a synchronize action. This gets all the data that's created on the server, and it syncs it back to our local device. So you have it on your phone or your tablet. Secondly, we are using this get package by number, which is filtering our local device's data using list operations. That expects a tracking holder and an account. Finally, we have to display that information in a page, which we have done here. But we also need to hide that progress bar. So if we right click and say activity, search again for progress, this time we want to hide it. And the way we hide it is by passing it the identifier, the show progress created. So we can pass it that variable progress indicator. All right. So that's everything for the actual flow. Why don't we go and build that API integration? What do you say, Jan?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I actually have one question here. It's an audience question. There is an activity here called synchronize everything. Do you need to check for a data connection first to avoid an error? Or what happens if there is no connection?
Yes, best practice would be to check for connection. In this case, I am at home, so I'm pretty much guaranteed it. So I took the risk of assuming I would have connection. But yes, best practice is to use there's an action called, I think it's literally called connection, check connection, or is connected. And you could use that with some an exclusive split afterwards in order to make sure that they are connected before we try and sync. Good question. Someone's caught me out in my bad practices.
Yeah, so one of the reasons we do it like this is because, modeling it out with all the different error handling and checking would simply take up a lot of time. But it's definitely a good question because in a real situation, the best practice is to make sure that every step of your process is valid, that there is a connection, that there is data before you try to do anything with it, before you try to manipulate it. So yeah, good catch.
That's definitely the safest way. All right, so how are we going to call this API? So just a word again on the API. So we are using the 17-track API, and that is hosted on Rakuten. So Rakuten is just a place where people can host APIs that they've created. And this specific one is free to test and to integrate. There is a free option for up to 100 calls a day. So if you want, go to rakuten.net and search for 17-track. It's pretty straightforward. I'm sure you can figure it out. If not, let me know. I'll help you. Okay, so we want to call this API in this microflow. So there's a couple steps to calling an API. We need to set the endpoint. We need to set the headers for the API call. We need some sort of structure so it can understand the mapping, which we can then use to create the import mapping. And then we need to handle the response finally. What do you do with that data? And handling the response is basically where we copied that non-persistible data onto persistible data and then committed it. Right, so to start this off, we can add an activity here. And we are going to call a REST service. So if you aren't too familiar with APIs, we have different types of APIs. There are most prominently REST, and the other one is SOAP. So they use different standards. They expect different things. Mostly with REST, we expect it to use a JSON structure, and we expect it to use a location at the very least. So the function we're doing is a get method. So get methods do not require any sort of request parameters or body, but it does require us to handle the response. So let's jump in and do this integration. We have to set our location first. I have, to save us some time, save that in a file over here. So that is our endpoint. So this is the API endpoint for 17 track. And then we have the actual endpoint is /track. That is a method for the API. And then we have what we call a query string at the end here. So query strings are generally indicated by a question mark or some sort of special character. And then they are a special parameter, which or keyword, which we use codes. So we are saying track, the code which we provide in these curly braces, and we're going to pass that using the tracking number. And that's all we need to do for the location. Now it's a get method, so we don't have to do any requests, but we do need to supply some headers. HTTP headers are mostly used for authenticating with the service. If you don't provide them, you're probably going to get a 400 response, which means bad request or something like unverified. So we have 3 headers we're adding. We are adding the XWrap API. This is unique to Rakuten. So they're expecting the host over here. I have saved that in a constant. Now, if you don't know what it is, a constant is something developers create, basically for storing something that might be needed throughout your application. So for instance, something like an API key or an API host, we store in a constant because we don't want that to be wrong. You can control that on the environment level in your deployment options. And it's just generally a good idea to keep something sensitive like that in a constant. So we are using the one API host in native mobile, and that's the first one done. So the next one is for the key. Now this is our API key. So just a little disclaimer, there are several API keys in this project. Please go sign up for your own. I will be deactivating mine after this because I don't want a bill of thousands of dollars. So our API key is again stored in a constant called API key. Simplicity is best. That didn't quite complete. For anyone wondering how these windows are just popping up and disappearing, I am using keyboard shortcuts. To close a window, you quite simply hit Control Enter, and it will close that window. The final one is the use query string. This is letting it know that that little /codes value that we pass at the end should be acknowledged. And this is a string, but it expects true. And that's all of our headers set up. So finally, we need to now tell Mendix how to handle this data. So we do that in the response. We want to actually do something with this. So we're going to change the response handling. And what we want to do is to apply an import mapping. We have some other options, but we want to apply a mapping. It's asking us for that mapping now. It doesn't exist, so we have to go create it. Up here, I have a folder, 17 track API, and there's couriers and packages. Couriers is already done. We're going to do packages. So give your import mapping a name. I'm going to call it 17 track _ packages. And
By the
we
way,
can,
make sure you ask the questions in the Q&A window, or look at the questions, because you can actually upvote them as well. So if you see a question that you think, hey, that's I have been wondering about that, upvote it.
yeah. Okay, so why do we need an import mapping? Import mapping is quite simply tell Mendix how that data we're getting back from the API response fits into our database. Basically, which table does it go in? How are we storing it? So to do this, we need to select some elements. And we have a couple different options here. So we have XML and web service operation JSON structure. For this operation, we're using a JSON structure. So if anyone is wondering what is JSON, JSON is, to give you the full definition, is JavaScript object notation. And what that means is it is a way for us to store data in a way that's meant to be sort of readable to humans. If you don't understand, it's not going to make much sense, but if you do, it's quite readable. So
and it's very lightweight as well. So it's
Yeah.
not taking up a huge amount of data or space in a document. So it's readable and it's super lightweight.
Exactly, yeah. XML tends to use more data when it's transferred, because you need to use the actual trees and all that sort of thing. So again, call it 17 track underscore packages, because it's for the same thing. You can name it something else. I like to keep it consistent, just so everything's easy to find. So here we are expected to paste in our JSON. I've saved that in a file over here, because I'm sure you don't want to watch me type that up. So we can paste that there.
That means the live build would take probably 2 hours.
Yeah. I've missed some curly braces. So a cool thing is when you paste in your JavaScript, your JSON, Studio Pro is actually validating it for me, and it's telling me it's not valid. It's not correct yet. So I know that I missed some braces, so I just went and grabbed them. But if you get that message, you know something's wrong. You need to go check your structure. So paste it in. It's telling us we need to click refresh. And there you go. So now Mendix is able to read all that data. Fantastic. So we need to now, we have a representation of what that data looks like. We need to tell Studio Pro or Studio actually what do we want out of that data. So for now, I'm just going to expand them all, and I'm going to then check them all. And let's have a look what that looks like. So on the right, you can see the data. The little red dots means it's not connected to a attribute in our database. This is saying we need to complete that, basically. It's a little error message. But over here, you can see there's this weird empty object. And what that is it's an object which is created in the JSON. Generally, this happens with arrays. So this is saying there's a one-to-many relationship here. But there's, again, another one over there. So I don't want this actual that object. So I'm going to untick that one. Cool. So you can see it then change to the next one. It kept the association even though we don't need it. So here we can just say map automatically. It gives us a little summary of what's happened here. And we can actually just right click here and say go to entity. So you can see here is my structure for the service. But when it looks like it's created something a little strange. So how do we fix this? Well, firstly, we're going to get rid of this. We don't need that there. We want to keep our structure, which we've set up. So if we go back, you can see now that I've deleted that one, there's a missing block here. So we need to now connect it to what we want it to be. So we have our root, and then we want it to be, I forget what we want it to be. We want it to be that object which actually contains some information. So we can then select that, and we can say map attributes by name. They have to be named identically for this to work, otherwise you have to do it manually. But
Which
you can
object? That
yeah.
object.
That object, yeah. So it means
Sorry, I had to make the pun, sorry.
All right. So we just have one link that's broken here. You can see there's no line going down to this next one. So quite easy to fix. We just say set association yes, and we select the association. It filters it automatically based on what's provided or what is available. And you can see our whole structure is mapped nicely. So if we close this and we go back to our integration call, you can see there's an error here. When I click this, it's going to disappear. So it's telling us now, it now imports JSON and saying all its issues are resolved. So just double check the response. We're applying an import mapping. It's the correct one, but we need to make sure this is stored in a variable, and it's going to store it. It's only going to bring back that parent object. So if I go here, it's only going to bring back this root object. We need to make sure that these associations are set, and that's what I did there, so that we can then retrieve the data later on and work with it. Right now it's called variable. That's not very good naming conventions. So we are going to just rename it to, oh, mouse is being a bit glitchy. We're going to name it to root response.
Well, good thing you know all your keyboard shortcuts. So
yeah. So there's just a word on that. There's a bunch that you guys can use. A few easy to remember ones are Control Enter will close things. If you want to find something in your project, you can press Control G. That will go to anything. So for instance, I can say 17 track gives me everything with that name, and I can just jump to that instantly.
yeah, it just instantly opens that document.
I suggest spending some time learning all the keyboard commands. It will speed up your development so much that I can't even quantify it. I can't explain it. Yeah. All right. So next we need to handle the response. So we do have a microflow here to handle that. It's got an empty value here. So we're just going to pass it that root. Now, what's happening in there? I'm just going to explain it for a second. Basically, it's going to take in that non-persistent data we got from the service, the API. We're going to fetch all the associated bits. We're going to loop through everything, and then we're going to set it onto that persistent data and commit it to the database. And that's all we need to do there. OK, so we have finished our integration. What do you think we should do next, Jan?
Excellent. Well, I'd love to see it, but before we go there, I'd also like to add a feature called alternate drop-off points. So I want to be able to just select a different drop-off point when I'm not home for the planned delivery. Is that something you can build as well?
Yeah. So we do have a page to view the package. I think we should finish this up first, and then we can get to that a bit later. So,
good point.
Yeah. So this is our package page. It's a bit basic. We're just showing that data from the API response. I think what we can do here is to have some sort of nice status indicator. So I have something which was prepared previously by someone else. It is status underscore snip. So you'll notice I'm using a lot of snippets. And I want to explain why. So because we generally work in teams and we have other developers, we can assume that something like a status bar is going to be needed somewhere else. So we use snippets to make it easily reusable for the rest of our team. If you're working by yourself, it's not really necessary unless you have some sort of specific design. But if you're working in a team, there's really nothing better than reusable components. If I go inside here, you can see we just have some containers with buttons. Essentially, these little green bars mean it's hidden by that status enumeration, and the correct one is going to show based on that status. So for instance, delayed has this delayed icon, and in progress has this one, and completed has this one. You can see the home. And that's what we need to do for a status. But Jan, you wanted a change delivery address. So we can say,
Yeah, perfect. So we can actually use that status page, the details page, to add a button, right? Pop up a little map, show me where I can get it delivered.
yeah.
Sweet.
One thing before that, which I have forgotten, is we have another one for package details. So if I just drag this in, you can see it's just a bottom sheet widget. This is available in Make It Native. It is an expanding option, but full screen is not enabled. So basically, this has two sections. The first one will always be visible, so there's more details will always be visible, and then the rest of these options will be visible on the first drag up. And that's just to make it look a bit more nicer and to give it some better user experience. Oh, there's another keyboard shortcut for you guys. Control-Shift-S will automatically save your project.
Yeah, so Control S is normal save, but Control Shift S is save all the things.
Yeah, save the entire project. Okay, so let's build that drop-off location page you wanted. So we have a button here, and we want it to have an on-click action. So when we click this button, we want to show a page, and the page we have is package info _ drop-off locations. So if we select that one and show it, you can see it's sort of a repeat. Oh, I've got these mixed up here. Just drag this one down, just so it's more consistent. So it's a bit of a repeat. It has some of the same data, just the number, the status. But then we have some account delivery address down here and a list of alternative drop-off points. So you wanted a map, Jan. So we're going to add some maps quickly. And to do that, we can just say add widget. Virtual map. So this
is that a map widget that's already available out of the box in Studio Pro, or is that something you downloaded from the Mendix App Store?
Yes. So if you download the native mobile quick start template from the App Store when you start your project, this will automatically be included. If you're converting a legacy app into a native mobile app, you might have to go and download this module, native mobile resources, from the App Store. Yeah, this one. It's part of this package. So this is the native mobile maps, and it's pretty easy to configure, with the exception of the API key, which I didn't feel comfortable sharing. So here we need to pass a list of our addresses. So we need to pass it the current address, which is provided. So to do this, we're using a expression. So expressions are sort of code snippets that Mendix allows us to use. It's almost pseudocode. So here we have to reference the current object, and the current object is package info. So if we just follow that and we say current location or current drop-off location, and that's pretty much it. You just need to provide it that address. If you do provide it your latitude and your longitude, it's going to ignore that address and it's going to only use the lat and long. There's some other stuff here that we can do, such as an on-click action if you want to click that location, but we're not going to do anything with it now. And then we need to have some sort of way to hide the map which has their current location on it when they select an alternative drop-off point. So to do that, we need to give it some visibility rules. And to do that, we're using, again, an expression. So we're going to use parent object again. And for this one, we're going to do select the drop-off location. And we're going to do a statement here. So it's going to say equals empty. But it might also be that it has some white space or something. So we can say and parent object slash selected drop-off location does not equal to empty quotes. And that should hide that when we have a drop-off location selected. So we want a map which has the other option. So if you copy this and paste it again, then we just need to modify this one. So we can change this one to be the selected drop-off location. And we can change that visibility rule to be the opposite. So instead of equals to, we're going to say not equals to. And by doing this, it's only going to show one of the maps at the same time. But you actually want to be able to click address, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
My mouth's a bit dry. So down here, we have a list grid of drop-off locations. And it's just showing the name and address in a label. But we need an on-click action here. So we have ACT update drop-off location. Now, there's a few things we want to do here. It's really bad to just update something like a delivery address without really confirming that's what the user wants. They could have just clicked it by mistake or something, you know. So we need to give them some sort of option to abort or cancel that. So to do that, I'm going to ask their permission, their confirmation before we do that. So this is a bit of user experience, and user experience is very important. You don't want to let the users feel frustrated when they're using your app. So it's good to communicate clearly and make sure they're certain of all their choices. Now in Mendix 8, we have a show confirmation option. So if you just search for confirmation, you'll find it. We can just select that. Now, this expects some parameters. We have to give it a title, a question, cancel, and proceed buttons. So for the title, it expects a string. All of these are string parameters. So for the title, we can say, are you sure? And for the question, we can say, did you mean to update the delivery address for this order? And then we give them a cancel button, so no. And we can give them a proceed button. Yes.
And don't forget, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A because we're nearing the end. So we can go through them.
Yeah, so a good coding convention is always rename your variables. We don't want to use the defaults. So I'm going to call this confirmed. Now, how do we actually validate this and make sure we're doing what they want? This action, this JavaScript action, is returning a Boolean variable. So we could perform a check on that true and false value. So if you add a decision to your NanoFlow, it needs a caption. So we're checking if they confirmed it. So I just do that. And then you can actually just pass it that variable. If it's a Boolean, it will understand that you're doing a check. And then you basically just have to specify true and false branches. So for your true branch, you select true. For your false, Select false. So on the false branch, we don't need to do anything. They said no, it should just stop and terminate. But on the true branch, we just need to set that data on the address field. So here we can just change, we need to insert an activity, and we have to change that object. We're changing the package info. Now you need to remember to commit it so that it also refreshes in the page. And all we're doing is we're providing the selected drop-off location. So we can say drop-off is equal to address. Now you can extend this a bit more if you would like with some geocoding. It's not necessary 100%. If you wanted to, you could do something like geolocate, and you could then get the actual latitude and longitude if you wanted to. It's more precise that way, but it uses more battery power, etc., that sort of thing. You need permissions for your app as well. And that is pretty much it. Did we cover everything you wanted, Jan?
Yeah, I think this is excellent. You know, you created a delivery status page, you did the map thing. Now, I think all that's left, all that we need to do is, you know, build this native app. So it just happens to be that in 8.15, we added an incredible new feature that's going to make everyone's native app building life so much easier. We released the native builder. So I would say show that. Let's see what that does.
Yeah, so anyone, I'm just going to share my screen again. Don't know why I stopped it.
You just wanted to see me on the big screen.
Yeah, I was just checking the numbers, really. Yeah, so anyone who has built a native app has had to use our native builder. And like you said, Jan, we've just released a brand spanking new one with this release. So we thought we would show you guys what it looks like. So if you're looking for it, you can find it under project. There's an option here to build a native mobile app.
And disclaimer here, it only shows up if you're actually building a native app. If you're building a normal app, then that option will not show up.
Yeah. So it takes a second to load. Remember, this is a completely external tool. It's not part of Studio Pro, but it is a sort of necessity if you want to do this. It's my favorite way. So you have some options right off the bat. We can either build our app for local development. That's sort of for testing and for distributing in your app team or to your testing team. Or you can build it for distribution. That's for putting it up on Play Stores and the Apple Store, that sort of thing. The biggest difference between the two here is if you're building it for local development, you don't have to go through all the issues of getting certificates and really making your app production secure. Obviously, if you want to do it for distribution, you have to provide all your certificates and that sort of thing. So we just want it for development. And if you click that, it will take you to the next page. So we have app name. I don't like package tracker. It's a bit bland. We're going to call this brackets. For app identifier is a unique ID, which is basically unique to your app. Most commonly, it looks like a backwards URL. So you can see it starts with com.packagetracker.mobile. This is sort of part of your app's URL, which they've abstracted. We have some options for portrait and landscape. I want both so that you can rotate your phone. It should still work. But we only want it for phones. You can click tablets if you want. Not necessary right now. So once you're happy with that, you can click next step. And then we need to give it some API tokens. So if you're wondering where to get your GitHub API and your App Sensor API tokens, we have a really great documentation page called Deploying Your First Native Mobile App. That will guide you through getting these tokens and credentials. I have mine saved. Once again, I'm going to ask you guys not to use these. I will be regenerating them after this session. So these are my personal keys. They're not going to work for you.
Well, they can't see them, so that's good.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Didn't realize that. So we are using App Center. You can do it without App Center if you want. Not 100% necessary. So finally, we just have some options to upload some images. Now, we have some specifications on what sized images work best. We would give you 1024 by 1024 pixels. You can supply this for iOS and Android. Keep in mind they expect different sizes. We're not going to do anything right now. We're not going to change these. We're just going to go into the next step. So for this one, again, we give you the requirements. You can do it for both platforms, and you can upload whatever you want, basically, when you click this. So coming up onto fonts. So if you have a stylist or something working on your team and they've changed the font, most likely they've had to add a font to your project. So if you're building your app and you don't include your font at this point, it might not actually show up when you're checking your app out, and you're going to be like, why is it all looking different? So just make sure if you do have any custom fonts, you can upload that .otf file or that .tif file up over here. Finally, it gives us a bit of a confirmation page, just to make sure that everything is how we want it. If you have different credentials for different organizations, you can change it here. And then finally, you just say, build your app.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for that quick demo. Now, while it's building, which may take a while, I have one last poll question for you guys. And that is, how do you actually track your own deliveries? So here's a little poll on the screen. You use one app to rule or, well, track them all. You use a separate app per parcel company, like PostNL or DHL or FedEx, whatever it is. Or you just get email updates, or maybe a combination. Could be. Or you don't do any tracking. It arrives when it arrives. Whatever. We'll see. Live by the day. Or maybe you do something else. All right, I'm going to close the poll in 5, 3, 2, 1. Quick. Done. All right, so almost no one uses a universal package tracker. I only discovered it because I was doing this, preparing for this live build, and it's actually amazing. Like, there are a couple out there who integrate with more than 500 or 600 different parcel companies, and it's actually fantastic. Here are the results. So you can see, yeah, most people just use different apps with different, companies and use a combination of email and, yeah, interesting. Even split. Yeah, I do a combination of the app plus email updates from different companies myself. I've actually turned off some of the notifications because for some deliveries I was receiving like 2 or 3 or 4 notifications the same delivery. I'm like, okay, calm down. I know it's on its way. Relax. But yeah. So
we did run over a little bit. Do you want to jump into some Q&A before we run out?
Yeah, definitely. So we do have some questions coming in. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A window and we'll get to them. So the first one here is back to the original synchronized data. Should we check all the entities to sync the data, or what will be the performance, or what will be effect on the performance when you sync all the data?
Yeah, so best practice is to create a sync configuration. For a small app like this, it's not really needed. We're not synchronizing hundreds of records. But if you go into your navigation for native mobile, there's an option to configure your sync. And basically, you should restrict that using XPath or some other kind of constraint. So only what you need is downloaded. But yeah, definitely so.
Yeah, so make sure that before you use the sync all activity that you set up that syncing configuration. Yeah. All right. Do you need to do a new deployment for, I guess, the native builder package every time you make a code change or a change to the model?
Yes. So unfortunately, when it's packaged, it takes the deployment structure and puts that into a package essentially. So if you are, especially if you're changing logic, you will need to repackage that. And also elements on your page, if you don't repackage it, they might not show up when you make that commit.
All right. Good question here from Alex. Can you also build the app using Android Studio instead of App Center? Because that was the drop-down option in the native builder.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple different options. Obviously, we want you to use GitHub and App Center. It's our standard, but you're welcome to use whatever one you want and whichever one works.
Yeah, yeah. So this is just to make it easier for you, but if you want, you have the choice. That's the deal.
I think we have time for one quick one.
Yeah. So I have no more questions actually. So is the app already done building, or is it still finalizing?
So 1 second. Still building. The Android is finished, but the iOS isn't. So yeah, this can take up to 10, 15 minutes sometimes. Remember, this isn't building on our platform. It's building in App Center, and then it's downloading to wherever you want it to be. So you have to wait for that online process to finish before it will download it.
So maybe you could just actually demo the app on the phone one more time, just to see, what we've built. And yeah.
So you can see it runs for quite a while. Don't be alarmed, be patient. Sorry, I stopped my app. I don't know if it's going to be done building in time, but if you're patient, you can hang on for a second.
Yeah, I can actually show a little recap so we can go over that while it's building. So yeah, over to the recap. What did we build?
Hold on. So what did we build? We allowed the users to search for and add deliveries from multiple parcel companies using this aggregator of data, 17 track. So the users can view a delivery and they have the option to select alternative drop-off points. We are also working with online data, APIs or integrations in an offline application, and that's really important.
Excellent. Yeah, let's, all right, I'm going to stop the share here and hand it over to you to see how far we are. All right, we're almost there, guys. We got to see the finished package.
Yeah. Oh, it's finished. Okay, we can connect real quick. Let me just cast once more. Okay, I shared the wrong screen. So
classic.
Yeah, sorry. There's the two.
More notes. There we go. Yeah.
Okay, so you can see the app is reloading at the top. That's just because it finished rerunning. Yeah, I don't think we have enough time. Should we just cut it?
So I don't know if the native builder is already done, or is that going to take a while?
Oh, so the native builder is going to take a while. Yeah, so it's still running. So I think we should.
Now we can see your API codes.
Oh no.
If you were quick, people have typed and copied it. All right, yeah. So let's stick with that. Thank you all for joining. Thanks for your time. We will be posting a follow-up on this. So we'll be posting the recording and any additional information on the native builder and the project files. So make sure you check that out. Please let us know what your feedback is on this live build and what kind of topics you want to learn more about so that we can do any how-tos or other videos or live builds on those topics, because we're here for you guys. So let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to see. And thank you for joining. Thanks, Ryan.
All right. Thanks, guys. Pleasure to be here as always. See you at the next one.
Yeah. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.